Welcome to Weathered Questions, where we answer the questions on your radar.
Welcome back to Weathered Questions. Thanks for tuning in. We hope you had a wonderful 4th of July holiday for those who celebrate that. And we've got a lot of great questions coming in from folks who've been enjoying maybe a little extra time outside over the last couple of days. My name is Jan Kaj, broadcast meteorologist, former broadcast meteorologist, joined by my co-host here, Kai O'Mara.
I'm still stuck in the nerdy world of weather. All the time, it seems like. Just one thing after the other keeps on coming in. You know, one thing we probably should have talked about, but we didn't, do that because we aren't veterinarians. How many dogs freaked out in your family?
Oh, my goodness.
With the fireworks? Happens every year. Happens every single year. When Jimmy was alive, though, Jimmy never, that dog was just different. He was different. He was not afraid of storms. He was not afraid of loud noises, and he'd just prop up there on the couch and wouldn't care one way or the other. And then I know some people whose dogs just ran around the whole house and went down the basement and just was having none of it. So hopefully everybody's 4th went well.
Jimmy was a proper weather dog. He knew what thunder was. He wasn't scared of fireworks either, right?
That's true. He wasn't scared of anything, as far as I know.
Our cat's not the same. Our cats despise the fireworks, and they are hunkered under the bed for the entire evening. So, yeah, they are not fans at all. All right, so let's get into it for this week. First question coming in from Eric in West Des Moines, Iowa. He asked, why do we get so many more storms in the afternoon and then they go away at night? So kind of getting at the timing of those storms, why it always seems to kind of be the same, at least here in the Midwest or the Great Plains for us.
Well, the big thing about these, Eric, is that the storms you're talking about are called air mass thunderstorms. And they literally respond to the air mass that we have. That means you're not seeing a big line. They're probably not moving very quickly. You're not seeing a large complex. And what happens is if you were to look at a temperature trace or a temperature history of how our days typically go, so Eric's in West Des Moines, so right in the center of Iowa, you're typically on a sunny summer day going to hit your high temperature between 4 and 5 p.m., most likely. Your strongest rate of heating is going to happen in the morning. So you're pretty much cloud free in the morning. Then you start billowing up some clouds in the afternoon. And if there's no atmospheric cap in place, which is a whole different show, we won't get into that, then you're going to become unstable and something called convection is going to happen. And an air mass thunderstorm is a vertical developing shower that eventually turns into a thunderstorm. And it is vertically stacked from top to bottom. So it can only go up so far. These things rarely turn severe. They're typically very small, and they're actually, in my opinion, Jan, one of the biggest headaches to forecast.
They really are.
Because, and it's not the occurrence of the air mass storm, it's where does it happen?
Mm-hmm. Have you ever heard us talk about like a pop-up storm, those pop-up showers, popcorn showers? This is exactly what we're talking about because we know they're going to happen. It's just the exact specific location. I mean, it could be raining over West Des Moines and not over Des Moines proper. That's just how pop-up in nature they are.
Yep. Now, Eric, if you want to have some fun, and I will say that we will waive all safety rights. Eric, if you get hurt, it's on you. Okay. So here's what you do. You take one of those old stir-crazy popcorn machines, right? The ones with a gold dome on them. Go ahead and take it outside, put some oil in there, start popping some popcorn. What's going to happen is it's going to start heating up originally, and then you're going to start popping some of those kernels after X amount of time. As soon as you start popping kernels, maybe let it pop for 2 or 3 seconds, then unplug it. And watch what happens when the heat goes away. That's exactly what happens as our sun angle decreases and our heating of the day stops. Effectively, these air mass storms rain themselves out because there's no more buoyancy in the atmosphere to maintain them. Just like the popcorn popper running out of heat, eventually you're not going to pop the rest of those seeds. They'll pop tomorrow when you get some heat again. So that I think is a good way to think about that. Now, if you want to drop a few kernels in the kitchen, it's up to you. If you want to make a mess, I suggest it outside because maybe Eric's got a patio he could do this on, But that's a good visual, I think, as to how to do it. But those are air mass storms, Eric. They're not anything major. They rarely turn severe. Sometimes you can get some small hail out of them, but they're normally not a big deal.
Yeah, so those ones, they just kind of feed off the heating of the day and then fizzle out as the sun sets. A lot of times people will notice whether it's storms or wind or different varieties of things, that kind of all of a sudden it gets calm at sunset. That's because a lot of different features of our weather are feeding off of that sunrise sunset cycle. So thanks for that question, Eric. Remember, if you have one that you would like to submit, you can email it into weatheredquestions@gmail.com.
All right, great. Thanks, Eric. Hope we have a chance to go out and do that popcorn experiment too. It's going to be fun. Just trust me, it's going to be a fun thing to do. We've got another question that is coming into us today. This is from Brian in Waukee, Iowa. Brian, what do you have for us?
Hi. My question is, why is my car covered in dirt after some rainstorms and less after others?
All right, Jan. Brian's car is covered in dirt. That's what must have happened. So feel free to take a look at this one here. Basically, it sounds like the general gist of this is, why do I need a car wash after a rain? Isn't it supposed to clean my car?
And why do I not always need it, right? Like, why is it sometimes the rain, I want to put my car out in the rain and get it cleaned off, and other times I do that and it makes it worse than it was before? Well, if you remember last week, we kind of talked a little bit about dust storms and how they are kind of firing up sometimes along maybe the leading edge of a thunderstorm and kind of kicking up dust. Kind of almost a mini version of that could be happening here, where you're getting just some dust kicked up from, you're riding in from Waukee. So maybe you're getting some dust kicked up from Western Iowa or even into Nebraska that is actually being carried along with that storm, kind of rising up into that storm and then kind of getting caught up in the raindrops themselves and carried down to the surface. So that's the probably most likely solution for that. Otherwise, maybe you're getting some local dust kicked up as well, that the storm is just kind of happening to do that just in the right way, whereas other times maybe it's been more damp recently and so things are kind of settled a little bit more. But those are probably the two most likely causes for that. There's a few different things at play here, but that's probably the two most likely reasons.
Yep, I'd agree with that. And just to add even more to that, the thing about rain is it's not perfectly clean. It's not like it's a distilled water drop. There is something in every single drop. And we won't get into the deep causes of that, but every single drop has a speck of something in it, whether it's a piece of pollen or a little piece of dirt. Ultimately, though, what's happening to your vehicle is what Jan just said. Something is being ingested in there. And my general thought is, the worse the drought is to the west, where these storms are originating from, the more we can actually have a risk of this occurring, where, I mean, your cars are dirty after the fact. There's no question about it. And what we didn't have, at least very well, I certainly didn't in college, I don't think you did either, Jan, is the type of dust satellite imagery we can see now.
Oh, yeah.
And we're not even talking about the visible stuff from space. Like, there are different channels that we can actually see these particulates. And so you can actually tell, even before it rains, this might be a pretty dirty rain and not necessarily a clean one. So I know earlier this spring, we had a ton of that in Iowa, multiple events of that coming through. And I mean, people's rear view mirrors, the side mirrors were covered in mud. And I mean, it was ugly. It was ugly. And that all originated from New Mexico. So it made it, I think, all the way up to the Canadian border. It was really something to see.
Yeah, you have to think like big scale with these storms, right? They're really kicking stuff up from far away, and it just kind of gets up into that storm, like you said, ingested, carries up into that storm, and can just the car washes do good business after those days. Maybe we'll have to incorporate that into some sort of car wash forecast at some point and talk about the dust storms when when they're coming.
It's always amazing when the rain and the melting snow. It's car washes and it's dry cleaners. Car washes and dry cleaners in March. That's got to be their best month. Maybe April, but I bet it's March. Has to
Probably. Yeah,
it's got
I would bet so too. All right, with rain on the brain, let's get to today's trivia question. Today we're asking you, what is the smell of rain called? There's a couple different answers that we're going to give you to think about. Do you think it is a WD cloud, a cumulatus, the Jones effect, or petrichor? We'll give you a little bit of time to think about that, and we'll hear a message from our sponsors and give you the answer in just a few.
My name's Bill. I've been a window expert at Hometown Restyling for 20 years. I love working in Eastern Iowa. These are neighborhoods I've known my whole life. I treat these homes like my own. I'm a craftsman. I want to know this job is installed correctly, that it measures up in every way. Trust your project with an expert like me. Hometown Restyling, your local residential remodeler. Visit hometownrestyling.com.
Today's trivia question.
All right, let's get to the answer for today's trivia question. Again, that question was, what is the smell of rain called? It's multiple choice this week. A, WD cloud. B, cumulatus. C, Jones effect. Or D, petrichor. Which answer do you think it is? Kai, I'll let you reveal this one.
This is a fun one. And there's also a debate of how to pronounce this, by the way. So you've probably got it narrowed down to 2 in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
It is D. And the way I say it is petrichor.
Petrichor. I've never heard that before you, Kai. I always say petrichor.
I've now heard petrichor as well.
We won't count you against however you say it. If you said it differently or say it differently, as long as you pick D, you're correct. Good job.
Right. And regardless, we talked about weather themed movies last week. And if you haven't had a chance to listen to that podcast, it's 1.5. So listen to that when we talked about Twister a lot. And I'm just thinking about that scene when Bill is outside. And this is the scene right when the big lemonades fall off the red truck because they're running out to the next chase, and here's Bill. He's looking at it and Dusty comes up and he's like, "What are you thinking, boss?" And he's looking and he's dropping sand and he's reading the sky. Well, I will tell you that if it's raining from a distance and the wind is blowing towards you, you're going to smell a whiff of that in the air. And as soon as it starts raining, it's basically a chemical reaction with the surface of the earth. It creates a very earthly, pleasant smell. And the general thought behind it, I don't know a single person, by the way, who doesn't like that smell to some extent.
It's hardwired into us. We love the smell of rain.
It is. And the theory is it's because water is pretty much the most important element of life. And we're sitting there, we're all water-based. We all are. I mean, our ancestors thought very highly of it. And so I think if you do some searching on it, I think that's why we're so hardwired to that smell. It's like we're so reliant on rainfall. We're so reliant on water. You need it to survive. And when it comes in the nature of things and it chemically reacts with the ground and the dirt, it just makes it like, oh my gosh, the water's here. So however you want to say it, petrichor, whatever.
Maybe there's a third pronunciation that we haven't even brainstormed yet. And maybe that's right. Who knows? Tomato.
There could be, but yeah. And there's a second thing about this, it's not just the smell of rain, but maybe this is for a different one. I've always found snow to smell like the inside of a freezer. That's when I know it's about to snow. If it smells like an inside of a freezer.
Ever observed a snow scent?
We will get into that when it finally snows again. Late this year, maybe around the holidays, we'll think maybe somebody's going to smell like a freezer outside and it's going to start snowing. But
all right, we'll circle back to this in another 6 months and
exactly.
We'll see. I have never thought about the smell of snow. I don't know if I've ever observed it.
It's probably
You've just
because
never thought about it because it's just like cold outside and just.
No, it means that I need to defrost my freezer. That's what it means. Because there's ice everywhere and there's ice in the environment. And so it all smells the same. That's probably what's going on.
A weekend project for you.
Yes. Well, hey, in an earlier episode, we have another question from Carol. And from Minnesota. Carol in Minnesota. Talking about an earlier episode, talked about different layers of the atmosphere and their impacts on the weather. So Carol specifically drives in on this one, Jan. Where does the ozone come in and how does it impact the weather?
Okay. So kind of getting at probably, heard of the ozone layer and wondering like, how does that actually impact our weather is my assumption here with this question. So firstly, we did kind of talk a little bit about the atmosphere way back when, but for anyone, if you haven't listened to those past episodes yet, we'll do a quick little recap for you. So the layer closest to Earth, the one that almost all of our weather happens in, is the troposphere. So that's the one that's the closest to the Earth. Next up, we get the stratosphere, the mesosphere, the thermosphere, and then the exosphere. So all of those layers make up our atmosphere. And the ozone layer actually is not in the troposphere. It's in the stratosphere. So because most of our weather happens in that layer closest to Earth, it really doesn't have that much of an impact on our weather. Sure, like on a global scale, it is going to impact temperatures to a degree. And that's actually a good thing, but we'll explain why here in just a second, why we actually need that ozone layer and why it's not a bad thing necessarily. But it's not really impacting like a weather pattern. It's not going to be a reason that you're going to get a rainstorm or not get a rainstorm, or that you're going to get, a high pressure area stuck over you or something like that. Generally speaking, it's not going to be impacting our weather on a day-to-day or, week-to-week or even month-to-month basis. It's going to be one of those big scale kind of temperature differential things. And that is really about it.
Well, and I'm not afraid to say that, air quality and particulates, especially in the different layers, it's not my strongest wheelhouse. It's just not. I do a lot of forecasting, a lot of severe weather. Getting into some of the smaller stuff like this is not my greatest wheelhouse, but I do remember one thing from college that is always stuck in my mind. Ozone is a protector aloft, but it is a pollutant down near the ground. And one of its key features has to do with UV radiation. And it effectively shields us really well from it. Yes, still some gets through, but it shields us really well from that kind of stuff. But to your point, Jan, you're not going to see, storms changing or anything because of something like the ozone.
Yep, exactly. There's very, very little weather impact from it, but it is still very important to us, and we are still very happy that it is there.
Oh,
all
yeah,
right.
It needs to be there. Definitely.
Yes.
Please stay.
All right, we're winding down on time for our episode for today. So let's get one more topic in. A lot of you probably were out watching fireworks here over the last couple of days, over the weekend and the 4th of July holiday. And we tend to get a lot of questions in after the 4th of July asking why the air quality is so bad. And you probably can understand that it would be bad right after the fireworks, but why is it still so bad maybe the next morning, and what's going on with that? And it actually does kind of come down to a lot of stuff that drives our weather on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, it really does. And there's actually two different things that firework launchers have to keep in mind when this kind of stuff goes around. It's actually three different things. The first thing is going to be chance of rain, chance of thunderstorms or not. Typically, if that's involved, then we're not launching. But number two, the real smoke aspect of all this, it really comes down to time of day. We don't launch fireworks at 1 p.m. We just don't do it. We don't do it because it's daylight. You're not going to see them as well. So we wait until the night.
Please tell that to some of my neighbors, Kai, who launch them in the afternoon. And I'm like, you can't see anything.
No, you can't see anything, and you might think it's something else in the neighborhood too. And you're like, "What in the world?
I don't
are
have
you
that.
people doing? Get out of here! Go do something else." But here's what temperature does, and a lot of people think that the sun heats the air first, and it doesn't. It heats the ground first, and then the ground heats the air above it. That's why it takes some time in the morning to get things going, and then we finally hit our highs about 3 hours after our peak sun angle of the day. So the ground is still warm. It starts to radiate immediately. And it's like anything else you have in your kitchen. If something is warm and you pull it out of the microwave, pull it out of the stove, it eventually is going to cool down. So it's immediately radiating as soon as you bring it out. So what's happening? We're starting to lose our layer of heat. It's called an inversion. And what happens is the height of the inversion, we're probably 2 hours in to when that inversion starts to build, maybe after about 8 o'clock at night. And what can happen is that the fireworks go off, the smoke clouds happen, and some of the smoke dissipates because it gets above the inversion, but the rest of it doesn't. And what we mean by that is the temperature is actually cooler down near the ground than maybe 1,000 feet up. And so the smoke can no longer rise. It gets trapped there. And if it's a really calm night and it's clear, especially if it's been a cool day, I can almost promise you that inversion is so strong, it's going to be there the next morning, to your point. And you may smell that stuff when you're, going back to work the next day or whatever you're doing in the morning. Sometimes haze can sit around, and I mean, we can see that kind of stuff happen pretty frequently. But that's one of the big things about it, I think, is just when it gets stuck near the ground, those that are sensitive to particulates, that you notice it for sure.
Yeah. And obviously, our air quality monitoring has kind of only gotten better and more advanced in the last several years. And so we're also noticing it more just because we're able to detect it more. So that next morning you're getting air quality alerts on your weather app, or, on while you're watching that local forecast on the TV station or anything like that, you're more aware of it, as well as maybe you just didn't care to notice it before, or just kind of brushed it off before, and it's a little bit more in our faces now.
Yep. I would think the most ideal weather situation you could have, and I preface this by saying I don't launch fireworks for a living. I don't know what the professionals state is their best weather that they like. I'm sure everybody likes different types, but number one, I like it when there's not a drought in place.
Yep.
Because that means your risk of starting things on fire is less overall. I just think if the winds are about 10 miles an hour, just enough to disperse that smoke a little bit, get it off the ground so nobody smells it. And then there's just enough mixing, as we call it in the atmosphere, kind of churn it out and then just let it go. Let it be done and go away. I would think that'd be probably your most ideal weather that you'd want. If it's really calm, a lot of people say, calm is the best. Well, that might trap it down near the ground though. So keep that in mind. But then if it's super duper windy,
that's just
I don't know what they do. I don't know what they do in super duper, like 30, 40 mile an hour winds. First off, in
I would
summer,
bet they don't do it.
Well, and in summer, especially places, in the lowest 1,000 feet, aside from a mountainous area, gosh, at that time of night, you would need either a heck of a cold front or a big storm.
Yeah, you probably have other stuff happening if you have winds that strong at that time of day.
It's not like October.
Yeah.
It's not like October. We go out for dinner and there's a 30 mile an hour wind after you get done. So that's kind of the nice part about summer is, aside from a thunderstorm, July is typically pretty calm around the region. So, well, I think this has been a great episode, Jan. I hope you had a great 4th. I took the family out to the Colonel's Stadium and watched a great game of baseball, had a great fireworks display, and we get a little 2-for-1 deal because the ballpark launches fireworks and we get to see the downtown ones. And there's no traffic. It's like I complete the trifecta of awesome by doing that. So that's what we did. What'd you do for the 4th? Where'd you head?
We've started making it a tradition, it seems, to go to weddings over the 4th of July. Several of my husband's friends have all gotten married over that weekend. So last several years we've been gone traveling wherever it is in the US that we have friends getting married. So this year we were actually up in Michigan, and
nice.
got to watch fireworks with the old college crew and all kinds of good fun stuff.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, we hope everybody listening right now also had a great 4th of July, and maybe you're looking ahead to some summer trips, and maybe you're counting down to school. I'm not sure what camp you're in, but summer keeps on ticking away, but we're hopeful that you've been listening to us and enjoying yourself all along the way. We thank everybody who has been submitting questions. For meteorologist Jan Ryherd, I'm meteorologist Kai O'Mara. Thanks so much for joining us. Be sure and send us what's on your radar at weatheredquestions@gmail.com. We'll talk to you next week.